Hello, welcome to the Mindful, Beautiful, and Thriving podcast series by Tarika Foundation. I am your host, Dr. Leena Khanzode, a child psychiatrist and founder of Tarika Foundation. With me is again Gayathri Narayanan, who has been taking us on this journey of mindful parenting and teaching us valuable tools each time. Welcome, Gayathri.
Thank you, Leena. Thank you. It's been a real pleasure.
So, Gayatri, what do you have for us today in your amazing toolkit of mindful parenting? What tool do you have for us?
So, I was thinking today, Leena, that we would drill in a little deeper into this step of making observations, right? So, we had talked a couple of weeks ago about this tool called OFNEEDS, which is an acronym. So, it stands for observations, making clean observations, connecting with feelings and needs, both of yours and your child. And then the first E is engaging with yourself, engaging with your body, and getting ready basically to articulate your empathy. So empathy then involves connecting with your feelings and needs, with the feelings and needs of your child, and articulating and validating what is going on with them. So that's the second E, which is empathy. And then the DS is develop solutions. So we've got OFNEEDS, that's of needs. So today I thought we would focus on just the O, the first step of observations. And in order to make clean observations in a situation, you first have to bring in that quality of presence. You have to first have the capacity to stay mindful and remember to be mindful. And that's the tricky part. And that's where the practice comes in. You know, once you've got your practice of mindfulness going, then it becomes easier and easier to catch yourself in the moment and learn how to bring presence in the midst of a situation, in the midst of a parenting situation. So when you become present, you connect with your body, you connect with your breath. Maybe you need to take 2 or 3 deep breaths, to kind of clear out anything that's already there. Maybe you got triggered, maybe you got agitated, and just taking that pause and bringing presence. So that's the pre-step to observations. And then when you make an observation, you are basically trying to verbalize what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're sensing. So, just what you're getting from your 5 senses without adding on any kind of evaluation or judgment. So that's the key part of making a clean observation. It's almost like you can think about it like what you can pick up in a video camera, what you can hear, what you can see, just the basic things. And then you make a clean observation. And the reason for that is so that you and your child have a shared reality. Because the minute you add the layer of judgment or evaluation in there, then the instinct for the other person is to immediately become defensive or to say, oh, no, but that's not what it is. And then because you're attributing certain intentions to the other person, and all of that just kind of makes a break in the conversation. It's not very helpful. So when you make a clean observation, it's a common place to start for the 2 people, for both the parent and the child. So that's the step. Maybe we can use an example.
Yeah, no, I think it would be really helpful to understand this even more using an example. So let me think of a common situation I encounter with my teen daughter. So the most common one is I walk into her room and her room is full of mess, clothes on the floor, used dishes and cups and whatnot. And every time I walk in and stand there, I just take a deep breath already to make sure I'm not going to react. But let's kind of maybe see how we can do a clean observation in this situation. And I guess, like you mentioned, mindfulness helps us to respond versus react. So I'm curious how the step of observation really helps you to not go in that path of reaction and go to the response or respond kind of pathway.
Right. So, for example, you walked into your daughter's room and you see all these things, lying all over the floor. So you'll notice at that point immediately that you have a reaction, right? So your body has already been triggered. So the first step is you're making an internal observation about what's happening within yourself. So you become present in your body, you notice the tightening of your belly, you notice the tightening of your throat, and you see your agitation in the body, okay, then you take a deep breath, you ground yourself, you become present. And then you can make a clean external observation of what you're seeing, right? So you can say something like, I'm noticing that there are these clothes lying on the floor, and there's all these dishes lying here, and I think this is from dinner last night, and I noticed that the food is all dried up on those plates. Would you be willing to please clean up your room? And now you're making a request. So once you've made the observation, you can make a request and say, would you be willing to please clean up your room today and put those dishes away in the sink? It would help me because it would meet my need for cleanliness in this household. So you're expressing your need for cleanliness and for order. You're asking her to take a specific action. But you first made a clean observation. And you contrast that with something like, hey, look at your room. It's so dirty. You never clean your room. You always have plates lying around.
Yeah, I think that's what comes to you in that reaction and feeling of frustration. That's kind of what we go to. But I really like your pointer towards, just keep it more neutral, have a simple observation and just relay the facts as is. And also then express your need and make a request.
Make a request. Right. Because the minute you have a layer of judgment in the voice or in the tone or in the language, then there's room for disagreement, because, for example, if you said, you never clean your room, then she'll say, no, mommy, but I did it last weekend. I did it 2 weeks ago, but you never told me anything. You never notice when I do something good, and then she can kind of go off on another tangent, right? And it completely derails your particular purpose, which is, I want her to understand that I'd like to have a clean room, right? So that's where the judgments kind of take us off track. It's better to use a simple, clean language. But again, in order to do that, we first have to notice what's happening internally within ourselves. And one of the concepts in Buddhism, they have this beautiful concept called Vedana. It's a Pali word. And Vedana is simply noting whether something is pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. So neutral meaning it's neither pleasant nor unpleasant. It doesn't have any strong quality in that sensation. So when you bringing presence to yourself in that, you can just mentally just note in your mind and say, unpleasant sensation in the belly, unpleasant sensation in my throat. And I'm having this unpleasant thought and I'm noticing that I'm starting to get irritated and angry, right? It's just that noting that quality of unpleasantness in the body and in the mind in that moment. And in that, you've already become present. You're already mindful in that moment. The minute you recognize that, yes, this is an unpleasant sensation, you are already present. And in that moment, then you have a choice to take the 3 breaths or just pause, ground yourself, and then make your observations right after that. So that's the process.
It actually sounds pretty simple, but probably hard to do. Like you said, when we were talking about OFNEEDS, that all these steps happen really fast. And I'm so glad that you're actually taking a moment to focus on some of the important steps in the OFNEEDS strategy, that observation is the first important step. And, if you are being aware and mindful and being present, you can really do these necessary steps and make an observation internally and externally.
Exactly. Engaging all your senses, your seeing, hearing, touch, taste, smell, right? You can use all your 5 senses when you're making that observation.
So hopefully our listeners were able to get an understanding of how observation is done as a first step of mindful parenting. So thank you, Gayathri, once again for walking us through these steps. I will certainly try to remember to do that next time I see my daughter's messy room. Our listeners will also try to do that. So we will come back to you again next week with another skill that Gayathri is going to walk us through. Thank you, Gayathri, so much for helping us with that.
Thank you, Leena.
Thank you for joining us. You're listening to the podcast series by Tarika Foundation, and and it's called Mindful, Beautiful, and Thriving. Stay safe and healthy till next time.